Welcome and ting and ting and ting. I'm Mr. Giant. I'm back with another reaction for all you. And I hope you guys are having a good day out there. This one is a Serbian video. And since I'm just coming back, I'm just looking to see what kind of current events is going on there. You know, this one is called, it's a news clip, and it's called Serbian Students Say Corrupt System Must Go. You understand what I'm saying? Things. So I'm just trying to see what's going on because, you know, I might want to travel that area there, you know. So without talking too much, let's go ahead and take a look at this and see what will go on here. Let's YouTube and simmer.
Balkans, I'm Escalating. The political crisis in Serbia is escalating after Prime Minister Miloš Vučević resigned amid growing unrest. His departure follows months-long student-led protests. The demonstrations across the country erupted in November after the deadly train station roof collapse in the city of Novi Sad, in which 15 people were killed. Tens of thousands of Serbians joined students in their protest against what they call deep-rooted corruption. Vučević said he is stepping down to lower the tensions in the country after a group of men with baseball bats attacked students. Katarina Petrović reports from Belgrade.
Wow. See, I remember back in the 70s on the island where I'm from, Grenada, we had discontentment with the government at the time, the prime minister. His name was E.M. Gary. And a lot of students took to the streets and stuff like that. And a group of what we call hooligans attacked them with machetes and sticks and things like that. There wasn't any like guns or anything like that. Not in that one. I think they called that one, was a Bloody Monday, I do believe it was called. I don't remember the date specifically, but you know, my country is it's a little island, so it's pretty small. So, and I remember sitting in the window because I was a kid at the time, and I watched the demonstrators, the protesters, walk down the street, and they went to the waterfront. There's a natural harbor there, and they went there, and they were there talking, and then I heard this chanting coming down the street. And these men, you know what I mean? It was in the blazing sun, sweat glistening off of them. The eyes are red, and I'm assuming they were drinking rum because a lot of these people, we used to call them the secret police or rum drinkers. My dad was purportedly one of the secret police. He was a police officer then. And I could see them coming and they chanting, and you could see the anger in their face, and you just know something was about to happen. And they went down the street, and people were scattering. And the big crowd that assembled along the harbor at the union offices, you could hear the slow build-up of voices as people start screaming as they start attacking people. So, you know, when they mention that the students were attacking people with baseball bats, that just brought back that memory there. Crazy. Wow.
It all began when a railway station canopy collapsed and killed 15 people in the Serbian city of Novi Sad in November. Renovated twice under an infrastructure deal with Chinese companies, the tragedy exposed deep flaws in state-run projects. People were outraged, but it was the students who made it a nationwide call for change.
Mi smo odrasli u sistemu koji je koruptivan, da institucije uopće ništa ne rade i nikad mi kao mladi ljudi, ako smo shvatali od uvek da nešto definitivno ne valja u ovoj državi, mi smo sad prvi put dobili šansu da pokažemo naš politički bunt.
13 people, including an ex-minister, have been charged, but the responsibility for deaths has not been determined. That was not enough for these young people. They have clear demands: transparency of the Novi Sad renovation, prosecution for protest violence, increased university funding, and the release of anyone detained during peaceful demonstrations. The students are saying their protest isn't just about the tragic accident. It's a generation's breaking point. They're risking everything, demanding justice and accountability in a country where corruption and neglect, they say, have been the norm for far too long. The weeks-long protests have spread to over 85 faculties across Serbia. With universities and many schools shut down for 2 months, the movement culminated into a general strike on January 24th. The
That's
strike
massive.
shut down businesses, with tens of thousands flooding the streets. Numbers were difficult to determine. Major firms, theaters, cinemas, bookstores, and cultural institutions closed in solidarity, joined by lawyers' associations and farmers' unions.
You see, that's what I'm talking about, man. Solidarity and thing. You know what I mean? When one group of people is having an issue with something, and everybody's like, man, stores are shutting down. They cripple the whole system. You know what I mean? Because I tell people, you know, like, when I was younger, and it's still the same, if the teachers strike to get better pay, that means that even the police will strike, even this TV doors will strike. I mean, people will close their stores, you know what I mean? They'll shut the place down. Hey, you gotta listen to us, man. We're struggling here, you know what I mean? They will just shut the place down. I remember, like I said, back in the day, everybody, nurses would strike. I mean, everybody, they would shut that place down. That's how you protest there.
Za mene je to nešto što mi je cilj borbe, da imamo neko bolje, normalnije, sigurnije društvo i da to zato što je nešto normalizovano kao pojava u našem društvu, da ne znači da to treba da bude dopušteno.
The students called on protesters to remain peaceful. They have faced increasing attacks on peaceful gatherings, including a driver ramming her car into protesters in Belgrade. On the same day of the general strike, thousands gathered in the Serbian town of Jagodina to support the president Aleksandar.
Why? Why would you do that? That don't make no sense. Just to run people over. I gotta get to where I'm going. It's not fair, it's impatience and wow, just running people over, boy, that's crazy.
Vučić and countered the protest that challenged his authority. He dismissed the protest as politically driven and influenced by foreign agents due to his close ties with Russia and China.
Znaju naši ljudi, zna naš narod, zna moja Srbija kako je napadnuta danas, kako je napadnuta s polja i iznutra.
The protests have only grown stronger since then. Students have set up tents and barricades, creating a 24-hour blockade at Autokomanda, one of Belgrade's major traffic intersections. Vučić promised to fulfill their demands and make changes in his government.
I zato je moj zahtev za što hitnijom i ogromnom rekonstrukcijom vlade Srbije, jer i u ovim teškim vremenima političkim pokazalo se ko je spreman i da se bori, ko nije, ko je spreman da radi, ko nije, ko se sakrije u mišju rupu, ko nije, i u skladu sa tim očekujem da više od 50% aktuelnih ministara bude zamenjeno u jednoj veoma hitnoj rekonstrukciji.
Hours after he called for easing tensions, a group of men, allegedly from the ruling Serbian Progressive Party, attacked students in Novi Sad with baseball bats, seriously injuring a young woman who was hospitalized. This sparked a political fallout, leading to the resignations of Prime Minister Miloš Vučević, followed by Novi Sad Mayor Milan Đurić. The country has a long history of protest, including the student-led movement that overthrew Slobodan Milošević in 2000. Jovana has been protesting since she was 12 during the 90s.
Wow.
She says this push for change is different than any in recent years.
Mislim da ovi ljudi sada zapravo znaju kako da promene sistem i da učine da ova naša lepa zemlja nastavi napred i da bude stvorena ponovo na nekim pravim vrednostima.
Društvene promjene su se svakako desile. Vidimo da mladi nisu apolitični, da nisu letargični, da su zapravo vrlo aktivni i vrlo zainteresovani u svemu ovome. Ne samo da smo podcenjeni kao generacija, nego smo svi šokirani, čak i mi koji smo dugogodišnje slušali kako smo mi apolitični, smo šokirani koliki to veliki odjek ima u javnosti.
Many protesters believe the canopy collapse was the result of deep-rooted government corruption. They say they won't stop until officials reveal who is to blame for the Novi Sad tragedy and the recent violence during the protests and hold them accountable.
It seems like more and more it's coming to the point where young people, if they want change, voting is not really the way to go. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't go vote. I think people should go vote. But it depends on the system that you live under. It's hard to make a change. I know on my little island, and we just made a change. We just had an election where they voted in a younger candidate. He's in his 40s and stuff like that. And everybody loves him, including the older people. You know what I mean? And I know that they had to have some kind of reservations there because the guy before him was an older guy. He was prime minister for a long period of time. Then he lost it for a couple of years. Then he went back and he was prime minister again. You know what I mean? And seems like young people have to take to the streets in other places, you know what I mean, just to effect change. And like older people doesn't know when to go, hey, it's your turn, you know what I mean? They just want to keep it status quo, and I think like money have a lot to do with that in every country, you know what I mean? People want to hang on to the money. So, and the best way to do it is just to keep power, you know what I'm saying, and things. So you see, especially in other countries like this country, Serbia, in my little island and stuff, young people get fed up and they hit the streets, you know what I mean? Peacefully protesting.
These are the largest protests since Vučić took power over a decade ago. The EU and other international organizations often criticize him for curbing democratic freedoms and failing to align with EU foreign policy despite seeking to join the bloc. But now he faces his most serious challenge yet. Student campuses have become hubs of resistance, turning outrage into a generational fight against corruption. A pivotal moment in Serbia's history. Katarina Petrović, Across the Balkans, Belgrade.
A lot to discuss about what's going on in Serbia. Let's bring in Jovica Pavlović. He is in Belgrade for us. He is a research associate at the Institute of European Studies. Jovica, great to have you with us on TRT World. Let me start by saying, the resignations happened, but it seems to me that the tensions are not going away and the students will keep protesting. They said, this is not what we wanted. So what did they want, actually?
We had abrupt resignation of the Prime Minister of Serbia after 3 months of protests due to the tragedy, the fall of the canopy at the train station in Novi Sad. And the resignation came in, at least the government framed it as such, as a response to the students' demands for the accountability for the corruption that, as they say, led to the fall of the canopy at the train station. However, what the government has forgot to say is, besides the political responsibility, the students are also demanding criminal charges and let's say criminal prosecution for the corruption. So in that sense, there was celebratory atmosphere in Belgrade among the students and other protesters yesterday as the government and the prime minister announce their resignation. However, it does not seem that the students will be satisfied with this as the only outcome of their protests, and I'm sure that they will continue with the protests with even more enthusiasm, as now, for the first time perhaps during the protests, they have seen that they can bring about serious political consequences, because the fall of the government is not a small consequence, even though it is not the end of their demands.
Right, exactly. It's a huge thing to happen, especially in the Balkans, where we are not used to young people taking their fate into their hands, if I might say like that. So the thing is here, it's been 3 months since that deadly roof collapsed. So why is it such a big deal for the government to find out who exactly is to blame and fulfill this demand for students? What's wrong with the investigation? Yeah.
Yes, the thing is, what you mentioned at the very start, it's very important that it's young people asking for these changes, because the demonstrations up until now, this is not the first political crisis in Serbia during the last 12 years since the Serbian Progressive Party has been in power. It's mostly been led by the people who were disappointed with the transition, so older generations. Now, for the first time, we have a new generation asking for some changes. Why are they still asking for changes, and why are they not satisfied? Well, it's because this is also, it has the whole protests have a political aspect. So they want to demand that the institutions do their job. They're not happy with the current constellation of political relations in Serbia, where all the power resides basically de facto with the president. They want to see accountable institutions that are ready to conduct the jobs that they have, and these protests are more aimed at those institutions than the president or any other political figure themselves. What the students mention mostly is Zagorka Dalovac, so the main persecutor of Serbia, who has remained silent up until this point. And it's been 3 months, as you mentioned, since the fall of the roof in Novi Sad. So the protests continue because the students want to see those demands fulfilled. What has also happened is that during the demonstrations, there have been many responses by the government to this protests. Many students have been arrested. So there have been new demands piling up, which want to see their comrades freed and so on.
What I want us to clarify here, as I've seen a lot of international media reporting this as some kind of demand for the president to resign. This is not what they're asking. They are just asking for the constitution of Serbia to be respected and the institutions to function. But can this government, well now, I mean, we've lost this government, didn't we? But can President Vučić, let's talk about him, deliver this to them? Is he capable of doing that?
The whole issue of the demonstration is that nobody is actually speaking to Vučić per se, even though President Vučić wants to put him center stage, as this is his way of solving political crises, always bringing the attention to himself. But the students this time are saying, well, thank you very much, Mr. President, but we are not communicating to you. We want to speak to the institutions who are designated for solving the issues that we have, and in this sense, in this case, it's the issue of corruption. So Vučić will try anything and everything in order to bring the attention back to the political sphere, back to him, but I believe that this will not go well with the students, because one of their paroles is you're not the legitimate institution to solve the issues that we're talking about. So it's this interplay between Vučić, who wants to be the one who solves everything in Serbia, and the students who want the institutions who are designated for this to solve these problems.
Who are actually saying you cannot have all the power, let the institutions do the job. I think that's the key point here for us to clarify, as I think there's been a lot of confusion about what actually these young people want. One other thing I wanted to ask you, since the beginning of the protest, President Vučić, now as well as the, well, let's say former Prime Minister Vučević, who will stay until the situation is solved, they both blamed foreign actors for intervening in Serbia. But students say this has nothing to do with anyone abroad. So what is actually
Man, isn't that always the case? You know, something is happening. It's somebody from the outside that's doing it. You understand what I'm saying? Don't look at us. Look at the outside, you know what I mean? But I'm not taking sides by any means with this here because I don't really know the meat of what's going on there. Comment down below. Tell me your pros, your cons. Tell me what you know of the situation, since you're the ones living it. You see what I'm saying and thing? So I think a lot of the confusion in situations like that, well, I could take it from my situation when I was a young guy and we had an issue with our government. There was a lot of, on the island that is, where I'm from, Grenada, there's a lot of confusion of what the young people really wanted. You understand what I mean? And of course it falls back to, do they want communism? Do they want capitalism? And then the labeling start. And then once the labeling start, a narrative comes forth that is put forth that doesn't really jive with what the young people wanted. You know what I'm saying? Which they wanted to. I remember one time we had a walkout because we had books in the library. And then, they're doing it because they're communists. You know what I mean? That's the first thing they were jumping on. And I think they do that so that it could nullify any form of solidarity from people who are older, you know what I mean? Because some people there's trigger words they hear. Depending on where you are, if you hear capitalism, that's a trigger word. If you hear communism, that's a trigger word. If you hear socialism, that's a trigger word. You know what I'm saying? And once people hear that, there's no turning around. It also depends on the history of the place where you are too, whether or not people are going to have a tunnel vision of what these people want, or what it is they're hoping to, what outcome are they hoping to get from this, from what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Actually, President Vučić referring to when he says there are foreign powers who are involved in this?
This is a tactical ploy that has been employed by this president and the government in leaving many times. So anytime there's a political crisis, they bring back this rhetoric from the 90s, which actually Slobodan Milošević quite successfully used to keep himself in power, saying that if my government or if my rule falls, then we will have all these foreigners intervening in our country. And this rhetoric only resonates with the older generation and with Vučić's voters who see him as a successor to Milošević. The students are not understanding what he's talking about, because these are, according to them, and most likely true, grassroots movements which actually have no foreign support. What makes this even more contradictory is that if we look at the foreign statements that have come about the situation in Serbia, most of the foreign governments, both from the East and the West, both the United States and Russia and China, have actually been very supportive of the Serbian government and Vučić himself in solving this situation. So I wouldn't give much thought to the claims that there's any foreign intervention in this sense. It's just another rhetorical ploy by Vučić in trying to push blame away from himself and onto somebody else.
I have 20 seconds left, but Jovice, tell me briefly, did these protests change the political scene in Serbia forever? Because, and not just in Serbia, in the Balkans, does this show the power that young people actually have?
Briefly, to sum up, yes, there has been a new generation which is getting politically active, and there will be, I suppose, many changes to come because of this.
Thank you so much, Jovica, for explaining this to us.
Wow, that was quite interesting. Like I said, drop in the comment section. I'm not sure this was a news cast that was like 10 days ago, so I'm not sure what is going on there right now. So I know there's a lot of you all that watch my my reactions. Please comment down in the comment section below. Tell me what's going on. You guys doing okay? You know what I mean? Keep spreading that peace and love, you know, make sure everybody's doing all right, you know. Each man, teach man. That's what Rasta say, you know. Bob Marley, you say that all the time. You understand what I'm saying? Thing. Go ahead and share this video. Drop a like on the video. And if you feel so inclined, subscribe. I'll put a link to all the Serbian videos that I've reacted to, so you could go binge watch, see what my commentary is on all of that. You know, I did history and culture. If you have anything else you want me to watch, and mind you, this is not a political channel. I just do a broad thing. I just wanted to keep up on current events because I've been gone for almost a year. I haven't been doing reactions, and I'm back. I want to know what's going on now, you know what I mean? Because I've actually had quite a few people coming on here. Just want to see how you all are doing and thing, all right? In the meantime, you all take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.